Okay, today's lecture is going to involve reviewing problem 24-3A. The name of this company is Rudd Clothiers, and I have previously loaded the problem and my handwritten solution onto Sakai so that you can follow along. I'm going to try to walk through the problem, take about 35-40 minutes to go through it, and let's read it together, read the problem. Rudd Clothiers is a small company that manufactures tall men's suits. The company has used a standard cost accounting system. In May 2022, 11,250 suits were produced. That's an important number there. That's the actual output, which you're going to need to help calculate the standard quantity. 11,250 suits were produced. The following standard and actual cost data applied to the month of May, when normal capacity was 14,000 direct labor hours. That's also an important number, 14,000 direct labor hours. That is the budgeted activity base for the year, which we'll see later on is used to calculate the predetermined overhead rates. 14,000 direct labor hours is the denominator value. 14,000 direct labor hours is the estimated activity base. Then you see a chart that has quantity and price information. You have the standard information, both quantity and price, for materials, labor, and overhead. And then they give you the actual information. Goes on to say overhead is applied on the basis of direct labor hours at normal capacity. That's also budgeted capacity. Budgeted fixed overhead cost with $49,000 and budgeted variable overhead $36,400. So there they gave you the total estimated manufacturing overhead, and they broke it down between fixed and variable, because as you know, manufacturing overhead tends to be a mixed cost. So part one of this problem is asking you to do what? Calculate total price and quantity variances for materials and labor. And you know what we like to do. We have a format that we want to follow here. We have the actual information, which is AQ times AP. Over on the far right, we have the standard information, which is SQ times SP. And in the middle here, we have another number which helps us distinguish between price and quantity variances. So we look at AQ times AP. And we can use this format for direct materials, direct labor, and variable overhead. So right now we're going to look at direct materials variances. Let's start with the actual this time. So in the chart, in the given information, they tell you that they spent a total of $375,575, which is made up of an actual quantity of 90,500 yards, and they paid a price of $4.15 per yard. Let's go over to the standard side, and remember the actual output, which is an important number here, was 11,250 watt suits. So you ask yourself, how much material should they have used? Go to the standard cost card. They said they should have used 8 yards per suit. They should have used a total of 90,000 yards, and they should have paid per yard $4.40 per yard. They should have spent a total of $396,000 The difference between the actual and the standard is known as the spending variance. Also known as the total variance or the overall variance. And you can see here they should have spent $396,000. They only spent $375,000. They have a favorable variance of $20,425. Favorable variance. But as you know, we're interested in knowing the price and quantity variance. So we go to the middle here and we see the actual quantity was 90,500 yards. And the actual, I'm sorry, this is a wrong number here. This is the wrong format. This is supposed to be SP. And that should be $4.40. This is $398,200. So you have a price variance here, which is favorable, $22,625. It's favorable. It's the difference between the 398 and the 375. It's also, another way to look at it, it is a price variance. They should have paid $4.40. They actually spent $4.15. That's a 25-cent savings over 90,500 yards, hence a favorable variance. So they did what? They did a good job on price per yard. Should be congratulated. Let's look over here. Let's look at our quantity variance. Difference between these two. It's a quantity variance. They should have used 90,000 yards. They actually used 90,500 yards. They used 500 yards too much at $4.40 per yard. This is a $2,200 what? Unfavorable variance. So what happened here? They used too much material here, hence unfavorable. The two variances should net out, 22,000 favorable, 2,000 unfavorable. Overall spending variance, $20,000 favorable. Let's go on and let's look at direct labor variances. And again, you're going to use the same format. Just need a moment to erase. So these are going to be our direct labor variances. And let's this time start with the standard. And on the standard, you know that the actual output was 11,250 suits. That's the actual output, it doesn't change. And you got to figure out how much time it should have taken. It should have taken 1.2 hours per suit. That's from the standard. They should have used 13,500 hours. The standard price, again from the standard cost card, was $13.40 per hour. They should have spent $180,900 on direct labor. How much did they actually spend? Again, the given information, they said they actually spent $200,925, where they used 14,000. I'm sorry, 14,250 hours. And they spent $14.10 per hour. Hence, they came up with $200,000. They have an overall variance here. As you can well imagine, unfavorable. This is the overall or total variance of 20,025. Unfavorable. They should have spent 180,000. They actually spent 200,000. They spent $20,000 too much. Adjust that a little bit. But again, we're interested in knowing the rate variance and the efficiency variance. So we have to go to the middle here. And we got these middle numbers here with a actual quantity 14,250 hours. And they should have spent $13.40 per hour. This middle number is 190,950. Difference between these two numbers here is your rate variance, which is 99.75, which is unfavorable, and their efficiency variance, difference between those two numbers is 10,050, which again is unfavorable. Again, these two variances should add up to the total. Another way to look at this is that they should have paid them $13.40. They paid them $14.10. They paid 70 cents too much over 14,250 hours, hence an unfavorable variance. So what happened here? Paid too much per hour. Let's look at the efficiency variance. They should have used 13,500 hours. They actually used 14,250 hours. They used 750 more hours than they should have, hence unfavorable. So they were inefficient. There's too many hours. Too many hours were used. Those are your direct labor variances. Let's see. Continuing with the problem, it asks to calculate the variable manufacturing overhead and the fixed manufacturing overhead predetermined overhead rates. So let's remember predetermined overhead rate. We've talked about it many times. The formula for the PDOR, total estimated manufacturing overhead dollars divided by total estimated activity base. So we're interested in calculating PDOR variable, PDOR fixed, and while we're at it, PDOR total. Remember, MOH is a mixed cost. Includes both variable and fixed. The formula, as I mentioned, total estimated overhead divided by total activity base. Let's go back to the problem. It says in the last paragraph, overhead is applied on the basis of direct labor hours at normal capacity. That's budget. Budgeted fixed overhead cost for $49,000. $49,000 is the numerator. It goes on to say, budgeted variable overhead, $36,400. Those are the numerators. What about the denominator? Let's go back to the problem. First paragraph, last sentence. The month of May, when normal capacity was 14,000 direct labor hours. So the estimated activity was 14,000 hours. That's going to be the denominator. That's going to be the estimated activity base for both of these. If we do our math, we come up with a rate of $2.60 per hour for variable, $3.50 per hour for fixed, and we add the two together, we come up with $6.10 per hour. And if you look at the standard cost card, that's what they told you. They said the overhead, 1.2 hours at $6.10. What you did is you were able to break it out between the two. Those are the PDORs. Next item. It says C, prepare the standard cost card summarizing quantity and price for direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. So I'm not going to cover that piece right now. If you look at the solution, it's simply taking quantity and price information for materials, labor, and overhead and putting it in a standard cost card. But I will tell you this, PDOR equals the standard price for overhead. Variable standard price, $2.60. Fixed standard price, $3.50. We'll need to see that in a few minutes. Next item, calculate the variable manufacturing overhead variances. So again, let's remember that the standard price is the PDOR. These are my variable manufacturing overhead variances. And we can use a similar format, actual, which is AQ times AP, the standard, SQ times SP. In the middle number here, again, we're going to use this SQ times SP. Let's start with the actual. Very simply, in the problem, they told you that they spent $37,000 for variable overhead. We can use that. We don't need to know AQ and AP. Let's take a look at the standard. Again, the actual output doesn't change. It stays the same for everything. This is what the actual output. From the beginning of the problem, 11,250 what? Suits. They should have used what? 1.2 hours per suit. And that's what? Manufacturing overhead is applied on the basis of direct labor hours, hence 1.2 hours per suit. They should have used 13,500 hours. And we saw that same number when we calculated direct labor. The standard price, which is the predetermined overhead rate for variable overhead, $2.60, right? Standard price is also what? My predetermined overhead rate. Math here, $35,100. Difference between these two numbers is our overall variance or total variance, $1,900 unfavorable. And we're interested in the middle number, actual quantity, actual hours worked, 14,250. The standard price, again, predetermined overhead rate, 260. This middle number is 37,050. You have a rate variance here of $50, which is favorable, and you have a $1,950 unfavorable variance for efficiency. And we already knew that. We already saw in the direct labor that they were inefficient. They used too many hours. Let's lastly look at our fixed overhead. Fixed manufacturing overhead. And we can use the actual. And then we have the standard. Which is SQ times SP. But more importantly, and this is important, this middle number here is budget. It's not AQ times SP. It is budget. So they told us here in the problem, given information, that the actual variable overhead was $49,000. And they also told us in the last paragraph of the problem that the budget number was also $49,000. The difference between these two numbers here is called the budget variance. And here it's 0. The standard, remember, we start with the actual output, 11,250 suits. They should have used 1.2 hours. And this is a number we've seen before, 13,500 hours. Multiply times what? The standard price. The standard price is $3.50. That's what? The predetermined overhead rate for fixed overhead. They should have spent $47,250. They actually spent $49,000. The overall variance is $1,750 unfavorable. $47,250 minus $49,000. More importantly, we have a volume variance here of $1,750 unfavorable. $1,750 unfavorable. So the question is, why did that come about? Well, in order to understand it, we need to remember that this is a volume variance. Volume represents the number of units that a company produces. So let's take a look at this. We want to understand the fixed manufacturing overhead. Volume variance. So it's a variance, a difference between what? It's a difference between what they budgeted to produce and what they actually produced. So what was their actual output? Their actual output, a number we've been working with a lot, was 11,250 suits. But what was their budgeted output? Nowhere in the problem did they tell you what the budgeted output was. So you got to figure it out. What we do know is we know a couple of things. We know that the budgeted hours were 14,000 hours. And we also know that they estimated 1.2 hours per suit. I want to say per suit. $14,000 hours was budgeted, and they budgeted 1.2 hours per suit, which means what? That they budgeted to produce 11,667 suits. Another way to look at it, check your math, if they had estimated to produce 11,667 suits at 1.2 hours, they would have had 14,000 hours. So that was their budgeted output. Their actual output was 11,250. They what? Underproduced. They came up short. They produced 417 less suits. They were below budget by 417 suits. Because they were below budget, their volume was down. They estimated a volume of 11,667. They only produced 11,250. They were 417 short of volume, hence unfavorable variance. You have an unfavorable volume variance. So there you go. Get it as many times as you need. Good luck.